ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारम् व्याप्तं येन चराचरम् तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Shivam friends, today we will be reading chapter 52 onwards of Upasna Khand, Yog Vasishtha Maharamayan, and in this chapter Uddalaka meditates and reasons. Vasishtha resumed, the saintly Uddalaka entered that cave in Gandhamandan mountain like a bee flying round and round enters the lotus cell in the course of its romantic wandering. To pursue his intense meditation, he entered the cave and sat inside. Just as when the lotus born creator retires and rests in seclusion after finishing his work of creation. He made a seat for himself by spreading fresh tree leaves on the ground, like Indra is spreading his carpet of many layers of clouds. Over the leaves, he spread his deer skin as the bedding of stars is laid by the blue clouds of heaven. He sat upon in his meditative mood with the watchfulness of his mind, just as when an empty and light cloud alights on the top of Risha Shringa mountain. He sat firmly in lotus posture like Buddha, his face turned upwards, his two legs and feet covering his private parts, his palms and fingers counting the prayer of Brahma. He restrained the fleet deer of his mind from the desires to which it ran by fits and starts. Then he reflected in the following manner in order to have unaltered steadiness of mind. Uddalaka thinking, O my senseless mind, why are you occupied in worldly acts to no purpose, when the sensible never engage themselves in what proves to be their destruction afterwards? He who forsakes his peaceful tranquility to pursue pleasure is like one who quits a grove of mandara flowers in order to enter a forest of poisonous plants. You may hide yourself in some cave of the earth or find a place in the highest abode of Brahma, yet you cannot have your quiet without the stillness of your spirit. Stop seeking the object of your desire. They are beset by difficulties and produce your grief and anxiety. Fly from these to lay hold of your chief good, which you shall find only in your solitary retirement. These different objects of your fancy or liking, so temporary in their nature, are all for your misery and of no real good at any time. Why do you follow, like a fool, the hollow sound of some fancied good, which has nothing substantial in it? It is like the great glee of frogs at the noise of clouds that promise them nothing. All this time, you have been wandering with your unsteady heart in blind pursuit after profit and pleasure. But tell me, what great boon has booted out to all your ramblings about the earth? Why do you not fix your mind to that stillness which promises to give you your self sufficiency and in which you may find your rest as liberated in your lifetime? O my foolish heart, why are you roused at the sound of some good that reaches your ears? Why are you led by your deluded mind towards that sound and fall victim to it? Like a deer deceived by the hunter's horn and trapped in the snare. Beware, O foolish man, don't allow carnal desire to take possession of your breast and lead you to your destruction. Just as the male elephant, deceived by the artful female elephant, is made to fall in a pit. Don't be misled by your desire of taste to stuff yourself with bitter poison as sweets, or bite the fatal bait that hooks the foolish fish to its destruction. Do not let your fondness for bright and beautiful objects bewitch you to your ruin, like a bright light inviting a silly moth to its destruction. Don't let your attraction to sweet smells tempt you to your ruin, or entice you like poor bees to the flower of elephant's nose secretion, only to be crushed by its trunk. See how deer, bees, moths, elephants, and fish are destroyed by their addiction to the gratification of a single sense. Consider the great danger to which a foolish man is exposed by his desire of satisfying all his unmanageable senses and organs. O my heart, it is you yourself who stretches the snare of your desires for your own entanglement, just as the silkworm weaves its own cocoon with its own saliva for its own imprisonment. Be cleansed of all your impure desires and become as pure and clear as an autumn cloud. When you are fully cleansed and lifted up like a cloud, you are free from all bondage. You know the course of this world is pregnant with the rise and fall of mankind, and in the end produces only the pangs of disease and death. Yet you are still addicted to it for your destruction. But why do I vainly admonish my heart? It is only by reasoning with the mind that men are able to govern their hearts. As long as gross ignorance rules the mind, the heart remains in its state of dullness. As long as the earth is covered with mist and frost, the upper skies are shrouded in rain clouds. But as soon as the mind is cleared of its ignorance, the heart becomes lighter. Like frost covering the earth disappears when the clouds disperse. As the heart becomes lighter and purer through the mind's act of reasoning, so I expect its desire to grow weaker and thinner, like the light and fleeting clouds of autumn. Admonition to the unrighteous proves to be as fruitless as blowing winds against falling rain. Therefore, I shall try to rid myself of this false and vacant ignorance. The scriptures admonish use all means to get rid of ignorance. I find myself to be the inextinguishable lamp of consciousness without my egoism or any desire in myself. I have no relation with false ignorance, which is the root of egoism. That this is I and that is another are the false suggestions of our delusive ignorance. Like an epidemic disease, ignorance presents us with such fallacies for our destruction. It is impossible for the slender and finite mind to comprehend the nature of the infinite soul. Just as it is impossible for an elephant to be contained within the shell of a bilb fruit. I cannot follow the dictate of my heart, which is a wide and deep cave containing the desires that cause all my miseries. What is this delusive ignorance, which, like the mistakes of juvenile boys, creates the blunder of viewing the self existent one in the different lights of I, you, he, and other personalities? I have analyzed my body at each atom from head to foot, but in no part of it have I found what we call the I and what makes my personality. That which is the I am fills the whole universe and is the only one in all the three worlds. It is the unknowable consciousness, omnipresent and yet apart from all. Its magnitude is not to be known, nor does it have any name of its own. It is neither the one nor the other, nor an immensity or minuteness. It is unknowable by the light of the Vedas. Ignorance of its causes Ignorance of it causes misery and must be destroyed by the light of reason. This is the flesh of my body and this is its blood. These are the bones and this is the whole body. These are my breaths. Where is that I situated? Its pulsation is the effect of vital breath and its sensation is the action of the heart. Decay and death also accompany my body. But where is its I situated? Flesh is one thing and blood another, and bones are different from them. But tell me, my heart, where is the I said to exist? These are the organs of smell, and this is the tongue. This is skin, and these are my ears. These are the eyes, and this is touch. But what is the soul, and where is it is situated? I am none of the elements of the body, nor the mind, nor its desires. I am only the pure intellectual soul, a manifestation of divine consciousness. The only knowledge of the true reality that we can have is that I am everywhere, and yet nothing whatever that is anywhere. There is no other way to it. For a long time, I have been deceived by my ignorance and misled from the right path, just as the young of a beast is carried away by a fierce tiger to the woods. Now, by my good fortune, I have come to detect this thievish ignorance. No longer shall I trust this rover of truth. I am beyond the reach of affliction. I have no concern with misery, nor has it anything to do with me. This union of mine and with these is as temporary as that of a cloud with a mountain. Being subject to my individual ego, I say, I speak, I know, I stay, I go, and the like. But on looking at the soul, I lose my ego in the universal soul. I truly believe my eyes and other parts of my body to belong to me. But if they are something other than me, let them remain or perish with the body, with which I have no concern. Fee for shame. What is this word I? And whom first invented it? This is nothing but the childish blunder of some demonic child of earth. For such a long time have I been groveling in this dusty den, wandering at large like a stray deer or a sterile rock without any grass or vegetation. If we inquire into the true nature of things, we are at a loss to find the true meaning of the word I, which is the cause of all our grief on earth. If you want to feel your inner self by the sense of touch, then tell me, how do you find what you call I, other than it being a ghost of your imagination? You set your eye on your tongue and utter it as an object of that organ. You have no taste whatever of that empty word which you so often utter. You often hear that word ringing in your ears that though you feel it to be an empty sound like air, and yet you cannot account from where this rootless word has its rise. Our sense of smell which brings the fragrance of objects to the inner soul, conveys no scent of this word into our brain. It is like a mirage, a false idea of something we know not that what. What can be other than an error of which we have no idea or sense whatever? I also see that my will is not always the cause of my actions because I find my eyes and other sense organs are employed in their respective functions without the direction of my will. The difference between our bodily and willful acts is this: the actions of the body done without the will of the mind are unattended with feelings of pain or pleasure. Therefore, let your sense organs perform their several actions without your will, and by this means you will evade all pleasure and pain. I will repeat, this is a very important factor. The actions of the body done without the will of the mind are unattended with feelings of pain or pleasure. This is a very good observation. Therefore, now the conclusion from it is this: let your sense organs perform their several actions without your will, and by this means you will evade all pleasure and pain. Don't attach your will to your sense organs. Just evade it, and you will evade all pleasure and pain. It is in vain that you blend your will with your actions. When the act of your will is attended with a grief similar to that of children who break dolls while playing, your desires and their productions are the facsimiles of your minds and not different from them. Just as waves are composed of the same water from which they rise, such is the case with the acts of will. Your own will guides your hand to construct a prison for your confinement, just as the silly silkworm is confined in the cocoon of its own making. Because of your desires, you are exposed to the perils of death and disease, just as the dim vision of a traveler over mountainous areas hurls him headlong into a deep cavern below. Only your desires are the chief cause of being attached to one another in one place, like a thread passing through the holes of pearls, ties them together in a long strand around the neck. What is this desire but the creation of your false imagination? Whatever you think is good for yourself, as soon as you cease to take it a fancy for it, you desire it. Your desire is cut off like by a knife. This desire, the creature of your imagination, is the cause of all your errors and your ruin, just as the breath of air causes both burning and extinction of lamps, lightning, and fiery furnaces. Therefore, O my heart, that is the source and spring of your senses. Join with all your consciousness to look into the nature of your unreality and feel in yourself the state of your utter annihilation. Give up your sense of ego and your desire of worldliness that are interminable and inherent to you in this life. Put on the amulet of the abandonment of your desires and earthliness and resign yourself to your God to be free from all fears on earth. This was the chapter number 52. And now let us take another chapter, chapter number 53, Uddalaka's reasoning and bliss. And Uddalaka continued: consciousness is an unthinkable substance. It extends to the limits of endless space and is more minute than the smallest atom. It is quite aloof from all things and inaccessible to the reach of desires. It is inaccessible to the mind, understanding, egoism, and the gross senses. But our empty desires are extended as wide as the shadowy forms of huge and formidable demons. From all my reasoning and repeated reflections, I perceive a consciousness within myself. I feel it to be the stainless intellect. My body, which is of this world, and the depository of my false and evil thoughts, may last or be lost without any gain or loss to me. But because I am untainted consciousness, consciousness is free from birth and death, because there is nothing perishable in the nature of all pervasive consciousness. Then what does the death of a living being mean? How and by whom can it be put to death? What does the life and death of consciousness mean? It is the soul and life of all existence. What else can we expect of consciousness when it is extends through and gives life to all? Life and death belong to the operative and imaginative powers of the mind, and not to the pure soul. The mind has the sense of its ego and knowledge of its existence and non-existence, but the soul is devoid of its ego and can have no sense of its birth or death. Individual ego is a fallacy and product of ignorance. The mind is nothing but appearance, like water in a mirage. Visible objects are all gross bodies. Then what is this thing to which we apply the term ego? The body is composed of flesh and blood, and the mind is considered a nothingness of itself. The heart and other body parts are all dull objects. Then what contains the ego? The sense organs are all employed in their respective functions to support the body. All external bodies remain as mere bodies. So, to what do you apply the term ego? The properties of things continue as properties, and substances always remain substances. The entity of Brahma is quite calm and quiet. So, what among them is the ego? There is only one being which is all pervading and existing in all bodies. It exists at all times and is immensity in itself. It is only the Supreme Spirit that is the intelligent soul of all. Now tell me, which of these is the ego? What is it and what is its form? What is its genus and what are its attributes? What is its appearance and of what ingredients it is composed? What am I and what shall I take? I to be, and what to reject as not I. Therefore, there is nothing here which may be called individual ego, whether an entity or non entity. There is nothing anywhere to which the ego may bear any relation or any resemblance whatever. Therefore, egoism is a perfect non entity. It has no relation to anything at all. This non relation of ego, with all things being proved, the fiction of duality goes to nothing. Everything in the world being full of the Spirit of God, I am nothing other than that reality, and it is in vain that I think myself as otherwise and sorrow for it. All things being situated in one pure and omnipresent Spirit, from where could this meaningless word ego arise? There is no reality of any object, whatever, except that of the supreme and all pervading Spirit of God. Therefore, it is useless for us to inquire about our relation with anything that has no reality in itself. The senses are connected with the sense organs, and the mind is familiar with mental operations. But the intellect is unconnected with the body and bears no relation with anybody in any manner. As there is no relation between stones and iron nails, so the body, the senses, the mind, and the intellect bear no relationship with one another, though they are found to reside together in the same person. Once the great error of the unreal ego has obtained its footing among mankind, it has put the world to an uproar with the expressions of mine and yours, and this is mine and this, that is yours, and that other is another's, and the like. Lack of the light of reason has given rise to meaningless and marvelous expressions of ego, which are made to vanish under the light of reason. Just as ice dissolves under the heat of sunlight, it is my firm belief that there is nothing in existence except the Spirit of God. This makes me believe the whole universe is a manifestation of the great Brahma himself. The error of personal ego presents itself before us as vividly and colorfully as the various colors that paint the sky. It is better to obliterate it from the mind rather than retain any trace of it. I have completely rid myself of the error of my ego and now rest my tranquil soul into the universal Spirit of God, like an autumn cloud resting in the infinite vacuum of the sky. The idea of egoism produces the great variety of our selfish acts, which create only misconduct and misery. Egoism has taken a deep root in the moist soil of our hearts and sprouts forth in the field of our bodies with the germs of innumerable evils. Here is death, closely following the course of life. There is a new life hereafter waiting upon our death. Now, there is a non being, a state of being distinct from its deprivation. And again, there is the opposite in our reincarnation, only to our great annoyance. This I have gained, and this I will gain, are the thoughts that constantly employ the minds of men. The desire of a new gain is constantly lit in the minds of the senseless. Like the ceaseless flame of sunstone is increased in summer heat. That this I want and this I must have are thoughts ever attendant on egoism. The dull headed pursue dull material objects with as much ardor as heavy clouds hastening to halt on high heated hills. Decay of egoism withers away the tree of worldliness, which then ceases to germinate like a plant of sterile rocks. Your desires are like black serpents creeping in the hole of your heart, but hiding their heads at the sight of the snake eater Garud bird of reason. The unreal world gives rise to the error of appearances. The unreal I and you seem to be realities, though they are caused by mere pulsations of the unreal mind. This world rises at first without a cause and to no cause. How then do we call a reality that which is sprung from and to no cause at all? As a pot made of earth, long before continues in the same state at all times, so the body which has long ago come into existence still continues and will continue the same. The beginning and end of waves is mere water and moisture, and the intermediate part only presents a figure to view. So the beginning and end of bodies are mere earth and water, and the intermediate state is one of bustle and commotion. Only the ignorant trust is temporary and fluctuating state of the body, which, like a wave, is hastening to subside in its original liquid and quiet state. What reliance is there on anything that makes a figure in the middle and is an unreality both in its prior and later states? So the heart also is as quiet as consciousness, both at first and in the end. It remains immersed in itself, both when it exists in the body or not. What then if it heaves for a little while in between? Marvelous things pass in our dreams and in our deluded sights, just as it happens in the giddiness of inebriation journeying in boats, in cases of weakened humors and delusion of senses, in cases of extreme joy and grief, and under some defect of the mind or body, some objects come to sight and others disappear. Some appear to be smaller or larger than they are, and others to be moving. So, do all these objects of our vision disappear and appear from our sight in the course of time? O my heart, all your conduct is of the same nature at the different times of your joy and grief. It makes the long of short and the short of long. Just as the short space of a single night for separated lovers becomes as tedious as an age, and an age of joyful wealth as short as a moment, my long habit of thinking makes untruth appear as truth to me, like the mirage of the desert. Our mirage of life presents its falsehoods as realities to us. All things that we see in the phenomenal world are unrealities in their nature. As the mind comes to know the nothingness of things, it feels in itself its nothingness also. As the mind becomes impressed with the certainty of the unsubstantiality of external objects, its desire for worldly enjoyments fades away like the fading green of autumn. When the mind comes to see the pure soul by means of its intellectual light, it rids itself of its temporal exertions. Being thereby freed from its passions and affections, it rests in itself with calm composure. The heart attains a perfect purity when, by withdrawing attention from the sense organs, it casts itself into the flame of the Supreme Soul, where all its impurity is burnt away. As a hero boldly faces his death, fighting bravely in battle with the thought of ascending to heaven, so the mind conquers all impediments by casting off all worldly desires and attachments. The mind is the enemy of the body, and the body is the enemy of the mind, but each dies away without the other, and both passes away without desire, which supports them both. Owing to the hostility between mind and the body, and their passions and affections toward each other, it is better to destroy both for our attainment of supreme bliss. The existence of either of these after death is as incapable of heavenly joy as it is for an aerial fairy to live on earth. When things that are naturally repugnant and opposed to one another meet together in any place or person, there is continuous clashing of mutual mischief, like the crashing of conflicting arms. The base man who has a liking for this world of conflicts is like one left to burn in a conflagration of showering flames. The mind is stout with its greedy desires, loads the body with labor, and feeds upon its precious life, like a yaksh ghost seizing the body of a boy. The body, being harassed and oppressed with toil, attempts to stop and stay the mind, like a impious son intends to kill his father who openly abuses him. There is no one who in his nature is a foe or friend to another. One becomes a friend to the person who is friendly to him and a foe to he who harms him. The body attempts to kill the mind, and the mind is ever intent to make the body the receptacle of its afflictions. What good can possibly accrue from the union of the body and mind? They are repugnant to each other. They are irreconcilable in their own natures. The mind being weakened, the body has no pain to undergo. The body is always striving to weaken the mind. The body, whether alive or dead, is subject to all sorts of evils by its hostile mind unless it is brought under the subjugation of reason. When both body and mind becomes resolute and strong, they join together to break all bonds like a lake and rainwater join to overflow banks. Though both are troublesome to us in their different natures, yet their union to one end is beneficial to us, just as the cooperation of fire and water for the purpose of cooking. When the weak mind is wasted and worn out, The body also becomes weakened and weak, but the mind being full, the body is flushed like a flourishing tree, shooting forth with verdure. The body pines away with weakened desires and weakened mind, but the mind never grows weak at the weakness of the body. Therefore, the mind must be curbed and weakened by all means. Therefore, I must cut down the woody weed of my mind with its trees of my desires and plants of my thirst, and having reclaimed a large tract of labor land, wander about at my pleasure. After my egoism lost and net of my desires removed, my mind will regain its calm and clarity like the sky after clouds disperse at the end of rainy weather. It is of no matter to me whether my body, which is a collection of my humors and a great enemy to me, should waste away or last after the dissolution of my mind. The enjoyments of my body craves are not mine, nor do I belong to them. Therefore, what is the good of bodily pleasure to me? It is certain that I am not the body, nor is this body mine in any way. Just as the corpse with all its parts intact is nobody at all. Therefore, I am something other than my body, and that is everlasting and never settling in its glory. It is by means of this that I have the light in me, with which I perceive the bright sun in the sky. I am not ignorant of myself, the subject to misery, nor am I the dull, unintelligent body which is subject to misery. My body may last or not, I am beyond all bodily accidents. Where there is the soul of or self, there is no mind, no senses, and no desire of any kind. Just as wild commoners and idiots never associate with kings, I have attained that state in which I have surpassed all things. It is the state of my singleness, my extinction, my indivisibility, and my want of desires. Now I am loosened from the bonds of my mind, body, and senses, like oil extracted from season is separated from sediment. I walk about freely in this state of transcendence. My mind, disconnected from the bonds of the body, considers its body parts to be its dependent instruments and accompaniments. Now I find myself situated in a state of transparency and buoyancy of self contentment and intelligence and of true reality. I feel my full joy and calmness and preserve my reserve in speech. I find my fullness and magnanimity in my pleasantness and even temper. I see the unity of all things and feel my fearlessness and want of duality, choice, and option. I find these qualities to be ever attendant on me. They are constant and faithful, easy and graceful, and always propitious to me. My unshaken attachment to them has made them like my heartily beloved consorts. I find I am all in all and in all at all times and in every manner. Yet I am devoid of all desire or dislike for anyone. I am equally unconcerned with whatever is pleasant or unpleasant, agreeable or disagreeable to me, removed from the cloud of error and melancholy, and released from doubt and duplicity in my thoughts. I traverse like a flimsy cloud in the cooling atmosphere of the autumn sky. With this, chapter 53 comes to an end. Shivoham friends, we will again meet with next chapter. Until then,